Previously at part 1. The two couldn't be more baffled as they watched Taehun just eat something that came right from the monster's insides. Even though the nurse will eventually get to find out his motives, she couldn't possibly utter a single word in such a bizarre situation. And from there, Sunmi knew already that there was a devilish presence inside of Taehun, and she could tell that something much worse was yet to come than the monster itself. After some time had passed, Taehun and his group were seen searching for materials. Meanwhile, Hyun-wook looked at his phone and watched as their ranks rose due to their recent victory. From the supermarket, they took essential items such as gloves, a cap, non-reflective dark clothing, and high-calorie food that is easy to carry and has a long shelf life. The survivors then proceeded to pack their belongings. Once they were prepared, they made their way to the town hall. Fortunately, there were no monsters present in the area. The group breathed a collective sigh of relief, but Taehun suggested that they continue moving. However, this time, he only allowed those who had awakened to follow him. He did not compel them to come, but most people declined to go. The common people who had been left behind cursed them incessantly. However, there were a few who were grateful to Taehun and hoped that he would remain with them and survive the disaster. Despite the circumstances, they departed without a sound. Outside the market, they used cars and fire doors to barricade the defensive line, and they even found a path that led to the train. The group was unsure of the current situation outside, but they knew one thing for certain: staying indoors and waiting for reinforcements was not a viable option. Bringing everyone along would mean certain death. A short while later, Taehun and his group set off for the military base, stopping at the police station along the way to acquire weapons. Taehun took the lead, while Hyun-wook took the rear. He instructed the group to remain on high alert until they reached their destination. As they got inside the police station, they saw a couple of men dead in their post. Taehun checks the guard and points out that the man had just died recently. After that, he ordered Hyun-wook to drag out the bodies and barricade the doors and the windows. While Sunmi was looking for the armory, she noticed something strange. She felt that there was something inside the bag, so she took a peek inside. Taehun then walked up to her and grabbed her by the shoulder. After a brief pause, she showed the item to the group. The others immediately recognized the object as a broken cup, but Sunmi felt that something was amiss. She pulled out her phone and showed them a picture of the cup. The Holy Grail was a unique item that could be used to create holy water that could heal wounds. Hyun-wook shouted in excitement, exclaiming how lucky they were to have found such an item. Taehun remained silent while Hyun-wook apologized for being too loud. After a while, Sunmi was seen holding the cup filled with holy water, and Hyun-wook was still visibly surprised. Sunmi suddenly collapsed, exhausted from the high usage of her mana. She quickly poured holy water onto Taehun's wounds, which began to rapidly heal. After that, Hyun-wook was so amazed by the effects of the holy water that he could not contain his excitement and began speaking in a loud voice again. After that, Taehun planned to visit the museum after visiting the military base. He then distributes the gun to Hyun-wook and Sunmi and informs them that it had 5 bullets inside the chambers. He then instructs them that they should aim for the monster's head and their chest. Taehun halted Hyun-wook and Sunmi as they prepared to go outside, armed with their personal weapons. Suddenly, a massive thunderclap struck, severely shocking Hyun-wook and Sunmi to the ground. Taehun then exited his dwelling and gazed up at the sky. As the camera panned to the source of the disturbance, a large demonic creature could be seen flying in the eye of the storm directly above Taehun's settlement. The creature's mere presence was intimidating, even though it had only passed by them. He then went back inside to check on his team. Hyun-wook assured him that he was fine and told his older brother to check on Sunmi instead. Taehun performed CPR on her, but to no avail. He then picked up the Holy Grail and poured the holy water down their throats. They eventually got up, looking healed, but only for a short time. Taehun instructed his team to rest for a while before making their next move, while he went to alter their plans. They waited until the storm had passed. When dawn broke, Taehun was still sitting in his place, having not even closed his eyes. Later that day, we can see that a bunch of little monsters get beaten up by Hyun-wook. He then felt proud of himself because not only did he get stronger, but he was able to control that strength very well. As their group cleared the area, Sunmi wondered why Taehun did not simply use his telekinetic powers to wipe out the monsters. He replied that they had not yet mastered their powers and that using them would put them at a disadvantage. He added that if a greater threat were roaming these parts, there would not be a bunch of smaller monsters wandering aimlessly. He then gave them the core that he had chopped off from the monsters and instructed them to eat it. After that, they continued their journey. Sunmi assumed that they would reach their destination in about half an hour, but she felt that Taehun was purposefully leading them straight to the monsters. And in his head, Taehun was planning on killing the weaker monsters so that they could build up strength as they go. Later, at the military base, a horde of monsters could be seen charging at the human front lines. Some of them could be seen falling to the ground before they even reached the soldiers. After eliminating a number of the monsters, their captain then ordered the army to hold their ground. Suddenly, a colossal monster covered in dirt emerged and joined the fray, acting as their tank. The soldiers were astonished to see another enormous beast, but they wasted no time in opening fire. They then used a series of grenades and hurled them at the monster. The explosion caused significant damage, but the monster was able to quickly regenerate. It then breached their defensive line, allowing the smaller monsters to overrun their position. The soldiers were soon overwhelmed by the monster army and were forced to retreat. However, their captain stood her ground and fought valiantly against the monsters. The largest of the monsters attempted to slay her, but she nimbly dodged its attack. The monster jumps at her as she keeps shooting at it, but she quickly knocks it away with her gun. The monster then takes its chance and tries to grab their captain, but it suddenly freezes in place. Taehun has finally arrived at his destination, where he uses his telekinetic powers to keep the monster from moving. The soldiers are left baffled, unsure of what they have just witnessed. To their astonishment, they observe that all the other little ones had been completely eradicated in a matter of seconds. The captain attempted to inquire who the man was, but Taehun did not have the time for that and ordered the captain to retreat from the monster. Hyun-wook leaped from the monster's back and swung his bat, striking the creature across the face. The captain watched in amazement as Hyun-wook overpowered the massive beast, his strength far exceeding that of their guns. Taehun commanded them to move out of the way. Hyun-wook then grabbed her and immediately dashed away from the spot. As the monster struggled to move its body, Taehun picked up a jerry can and threw it at the monster. Using his power, he ignited the jerry can and blew it up in the monster's face. The fire quickly spread over the monster's body. The monster's skin hardened and it came into contact with the fire because it was coated with dirt. Taehun then used his power to solidify his arm into a metallic state. As the monster began to crumble, Taehun rushed forward and used his fist to destroy what was left of it. The soldiers were left awestruck after the fight, as they had witnessed Taehun effortlessly defeat the monster in mere moments. In the recent events, monsters emerged out of nowhere yesterday afternoon. Officers who settled in their status quo were instantly massacred, and the communication was lost and the command group was wiped out. The enemy's onslaught instilled fear in the soldiers, causing them to lose their fighting spirit. However, the lieutenant's efforts succeeded in rallying the remaining forces and holding the defensive line. Yet, as she watched her squad mates perish one by one, the lieutenant began to feel powerless and thought that her efforts were in vain. Just then, Taehun appeared and saved the day. This was the lieutenant's first meeting with Taehun, and it marked the beginning of a new relationship. Taehun inquired of the lieutenant if she was the commander in charge, to which she affirmed. Then Taehun requested her to immediately replenish the weapons and begin to clear the remaining party. The party is composed of a total of 33 soldiers who are still alive, and less than 10 who have no combat strength. Taehun then ordered Sunmi to heal the wounded soldiers, while Hyun-wook was tasked with guarding the big boys. They're talking about guns. While Taehun boldly declares that he'll solo the rest of the monsters like a protagonist, well actually he's the protagonist, the lieutenant tells him to stay put since they don't even know his identity. Taehun explained that the monsters are now more organized, suggesting that they are being controlled by a leader. When she asked what he meant, he replied that if you don't remove the source of the problem, it will just keep coming back. He rushed forward and told them that they could not afford to waste any more time and needed to prepare immediately. She was hesitant, but Taehun told her that introductions could wait. As Taehun marched forth with the soldiers, the lieutenant was worried about following him since they immediately rushed without a strategic plan. At the barracks, Taehun and the soldiers fired upon the advancing wave of monsters. As they continued to do so, goblins attempted to attack their blind spots, but Taehun countered them with a spinning hook kick and shot them after getting slammed down the ground. As they sprinted towards the area, the lieutenant was impressed by his marksmanship and wondered about his real identity. Suddenly, Taehun sensed danger approaching. The wall of the warehouse immediately explodes and Taehun gets the lieutenant within his grasp, barely dodging just in time. After the smoke clears out in their field of view, a different type of monster emerges outside. The creature, which appeared to be the leader of the monsters, had a single horn protruding from its head and was wielding a voodoo staff. As Taehun and the lieutenant observed it, it noticed them and made them feel uneasy. Taehun ordered the lieutenant to support him by aiming and attacking the enemy. Even though she was confused by the current situation, the leader then immediately commanded the monsters to charge at them. While the monsters charged at Taehun, he took out his dagger and skillfully killed them, while the lieutenant shot at the monster's leader but it blocked the bullets with its spell. The monster's leader then pulled a surprise move, deflecting the bullets back at them. Taehun quickly noticed and dodged them all, then threw his dagger at the monster, breaking its barrier. The moment it broke, Taehun charged forward and clenched his fist, ready to finish off the monster's leader. After a grueling battle, the lieutenant finally understood what Taehun had meant. The enemies in the barracks were wiped out, and they regained the lost front line. With Taehun's assistance, their progression was rapid. Sunmi treated the wounded with her mysterious power while Hyun-wook opened an arsenal and restocked the equipment. The lieutenant observed Taehun sitting on the bench and thought he was a strange person. She approached him and was surprised when he called her by her name, Kim Soo-ji. He then asked her to ask him anything she wanted. Kim Soo-ji wanted to express her gratitude once again, then asked Taehun how did he know her name. He explains that he met her grandfather Kim Jae-rong, who was the former commander and brigadier general of the capital military region. He also met with Major General Jang Young-sung in the Army General Military Region 5 years ago. Lieutenant Kim Soo-ji was also present at that time before. She reminisces fondly about the time they met. 5 years ago, Kim Soo-ji and her superiors were seen exchanging greetings. Upon noticing Taehun as he exited the room, Kim Soo-ji inquired as to his identity by asking the commander. Her commander instructed her not to attempt to learn any information about them, and to not interact with them in the army in the future. Kim Soo-ji was wondering why, and his commander explained. The group of people had no formal affiliation or ranks, and they were as ferocious as wolves on the battlefield, calling him a real soldier. After the flashback, Taehun inquired as to whether she had previously heard it from the brigadier general. Then Taehun suddenly pulled back his hood and stood in front of Kim Soo-ji. He requested that she gather all of the soldiers immediately so that they could make a deal. This is all for part 2 of the manhwa. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, comment, like, and subscribe. Have a good day in peace.